Yeah, so Andrew Cameron on a small farm in Upper Burring Bar, an old avocado orchard that was sort of left for about 20 years prior to us buying, and we've now taken on the journey of being custodians of this land and bringing this orchard back to life, transitioning it to a organic regenerative food production system. Obviously a number of steps into that process of transformation coming onto the property, and the first thing really is spending time observing, not engaging too much, really learning the land, just watching the seasons and start constructing a bit of a game plan, understanding the soil, doing the right soil tests, looking at the types of plants and animals that are growing, feeling my way through the different plants that are there. The first thing really, I guess, is stopping the use of any chemical and letting the plants come back in and letting biology start to work, using those low succession pioneer plants as biomass builders, chopping and dropping a lot of that, and that's the first process of just observing, and then initiating the game plan, I guess, of pruning these big trees right down to about shoulder height, which involve the right decisions of equipment and how we then build life back in. So pruning these down, making a lot of wood chip, bringing a bit of compost, planting other support species, letting the native rainforest come in, lots of different sandpaper figs, red cedars, macarangas, pencil cedars, brown currajongs, red ash, poison peach, all these beautiful pioneer species that will come in and put roots in, photosynthesize, help build biomass and root system, because what we're trying to do is build that fungi, build it more to what a rainforest should be like, stemming away from that monoculture, one crop system, and bringing biology back in. So yeah, we're pruning them down, chipping, letting certain pioneer species grow, and introducing through the help of the Tweed Council Sustainable Ag Grant, a range of trees that will add support, add to the production of the production zone of the farm, this 1 hectare, and help with biodiversity, help with pollination. So there's a mix of about 330 different trees utilised as tools. All the trees and plants are essentially tools that we work with, and those support species of casuarina river sheoak, beautiful native fast growing silica building nitrogen fixing tree, and seeing that interact, that tree and the avocados, and seeing the macarangas, another thing growing around it, helping it through that really bad wet season. So yeah, then it's a mix of doing that pruning, getting the chip and planting these trees. So 90 casuarinas in between all the avocados, finding spaces for the Davidson Plum, which is an additional income, creating financial sustainability, also more resilience for when it does get really wet. I know for a fact that Davo plums handle that, whereas the avos might drop off. So we're creating diversity within our soil, within the environment, and within our income potential as well. And then bringing in lemon myrtles for more biodiversity, also small yield on the side of the hero of avocado and davos, and a whole range of native beneficial insect and pollinated trees, those leptospermums, grevilleas, callistemons, to get that flower life happening. Got some native bees on farm, eventually maybe bring in European bees, and yeah, so just bringing life in, mostly using plants. Yeah, you really want a good thick mulch underneath there. So that obviously needs a lot of chip, so some of that comes off the avo trees that we've got there. I can go into the forest and find camphor and wild tobacco and other things to add diversity into that mulch. But yeah, it's a process of going through, brush cutting really low, pulling out some undesirable plants like the devil's fig and green cestrum, and then adding a good layer of compost, and then a good thick layer of mulch on top of that. And as we saw today, we've had 2 weeks, 3 weeks of quite dry, hot weather, and when you go through that mulch, I mean, it's beautiful wet moist soil still, so really does the job. And you know, that's what these trees want. They want that beautiful moist humus building environment, and also fungi building environment with all that beautiful wood chip.
Perfect. Give us a little bit of a rundown of the decision to bring chickens into the system.
Yeah, so to me, animals are another really important tool, especially from a sort of a regenerative, holistic sense. One of the best fertilizers going around, beautiful source of nitrogen, phosphorus. In an orchard sense, in a horticultural orchard sense, chicken manure is often the main input. The main cost is the main input brought in, and that could be coming in from an unknown source, shed chickens with antibiotics, God knows what. It's a cost. When instead of that cost and risk essentially to the biome in there, I can bring in an animal that transforms all that weed and insect and cycles nutrients and deposits this beautiful fertilizer, and it's doing it for free. Well, it's not doing it for free, it's doing it and making revenue. So even though a small flock like this, 30 chickens, will produce about 900 kilos of manure over a year, they will produce close to 540 dozen eggs over a year. So that feeds us, my family, and that gives a small income that feeds the local community. So that, with the system I have there, it's mobile. So animals, again, one of the greatest tools you can use in cycling nutrients, dealing with those plants and grasses, fertilizing, feeding us, feeding the plant, feeding the community, and instead of spending money on manure, I'm getting money for eggs and manure.
Amazing. Do you have any idea of whether or not this system will be more intensive than a traditional orchard when it gets going, or is there less inputs required, do you think, in terms of labour and that sort of thing?
I think definitely as time goes on, this will be a less intensive system and far less inputs. That is the whole design of it. I mean, now in the transition, it's obviously a lot of work, but once that canopy is up, once I have tree shade, once I have the right ground covers like the pinto peanut, smothering the other grasses and so forth, I'm not having to bring in fertilizers. Instead of bringing in, I'm not having to spray for weeds or things like that, because I'm growing, well, one, I'm using them as a tool anyway. That's my fertilizer, that's my biomass. And all that diversity, the nitrogen fixing trees, the nitrogen fixing ground covers, fertilization from the chickens, all the beneficial flowering trees that will bring in diversity of insects. I mean, this is nature. We're creating a natural environment here. And in a healthy natural environment, there's clean organic soil, there's lots of organic matter, there's ground cover, lots of plants photosynthesizing, taking energy out of the sun, putting it in the ground, flowers and so forth. So absolutely, going forward, this will be a far less intensive system. That is absolutely the goal. And the trees are doing most of the work. Before it was very much, okay, I need the input of glyphosate, I need the input of fertilizer, I need the input of sprays for when spotting bug and stuff like that comes in. That will be a challenge that will arise once the fruit is pumping again, but then we'll have integrated pest management, things like that. So yeah, it's most definitely will be a less intensive a farm thing, less machinery, far less inputs. And that's not only better on the wallet, it's creating healthier food, and it's creating a much better quality of life, because you're in life, you're feeling it, you're part of it. You're not, okay, so part of me is thinking this is not good chemical to use, part of me is thinking I shouldn't be stripping the soil and making it bare. Yeah.
What would be your sort of final words of encouragement for people looking to get into this? Would they start small? Or?
Absolutely. I think for people wanting to get into this and wanting to, be productive on land, I think absolutely start small and test things as you go. This was a new context for me in terms of a big orchard in a rainforest scenario. I'm much used to pasture-based systems. I know that very well at the back of my hand, so this was a new thing, and the key was observing first and just spending 2 years of watching, also asking the right farmers and going to more farms. Don't just dive in. The longer you take to get to your plan, which will change, the better it becomes. So it's very much just go slow, and observe and learn. And you don't know what you don't know, so just it's so worthy spending that time to go to these sort of field days, get the right education, go and do courses around holistic management, biological farming, permaculture, syntropics, but get the knowledge, and knowledge rather than information, because knowledge is experience, everything else is information. So when you learn something from information, take that, but test it, feel it out. Someone says, oh, finger limes are great. Well, grow 1 finger lime, grow 2 finger limes, feel it out, see how it goes, and then see, do you really want to do that? You don't have to just do things because that's what the norm is or what someone said. It's really feeling into your land, your life, and then creating a holistic goal as such that's going to link into your life. Being on farm, being a landowner and custodian, it's an extension of you. So it's definitely a process of learning that land and how this is going to gel with your life and what you like doing, what feels good. But yeah, in those early stages, slow is the goal, for sure.